What's going on, guys? So I am out of the IS300. I'm just finishing up my rewire of the car, and actually today I feel like it would be a good time for me to go through how I've been setting up my engine bay fuse box and how I've been tapping into it. So I've basically taken it apart. So that's what this video is going to be on, is this fuse box here on the passenger side strut tower of the engine bay. And immediately you're probably thinking like, well, that fuse box looks backwards. Why does it look like a mirror opposite of my fuse box? That's because it is. This one is from the right-hand drive version, specifically an IS200, but the same fuse box is in the Altezza. There's not much difference with it when you compare it to the IS300 fuse box. The inside fuse block assemblies I've unsnapped from my IS300 fuse box, which is here, and I've snapped them into the IS200 fuse box. IS200, it's not the 3SGE 2-liter, 2G or a 1G engine, I forget. That engine is largely in European countries and right-hand drive versions of this car, which is why this fuse box looks flip-flopped, just because it's normally on the other strut tower. So I put it in my car for my own, well, the case that holds my fuse block, I've put it in my car. I'll talk about that in the end of the video. If you wanted to do the same thing, because I'm wanting to do it so that I can tuck it more back into the corner of the engine bay because of the way that it's curved. Since my wife's parents live in England, I got it whenever I went over there to visit one time. Fuse blocks unsnap from that, and they snap into the IS300 plastic fuse box holder. In this video, I'm going to be talking about how to reuse your open fuse spots. So you can take advantage of those and you can keep the OEM look while also adding an extra wire or two to your fuse block. But as long as you don't overload your fuse box, cause a fire, you're good. And if you want to jump through different sections of this video without having to listen to the whole thing and know exactly where you're going to jump to, look at the progress bar at the bottom of this video and then click on the different spots of the progress bar. I've got the YouTube chapters laid out so that you can click on it and you can jump to the different sections as they're labeled on the progress bar. So I'll also be talking about how to get the fuse box apart, because you can see I have my fuse blocks lifted out of it. I haven't snapped them back in to the IS200 Altezza. So I'm going to talk about how to get these out. It's kind of an involved process, but it's not too bad. It's difficult to move the tabs that are holding these fuse blocks in. But I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to show how I did it and talk about this a little bit more in detail and show where the tabs are of a fuse box that's already had the fuse block taken out of it. Anyway, how do you get this apart? Before you even start unsnapping the tabs and you get it as far as I've gotten it right here, first you'll need to unbolt this 10mm bolt that goes here and then remove this assembly. There's basically a clip thing that I have moved to here. So this is what snaps down. So this has its own little snaps and it snaps down on this. So you'll need to remove that and get that out of the way. And then after that's out of the way, you can proceed to start taking these two relays out. It helps a lot if you have 4 hands while you're doing this, but basically you would pry those out. You would have the 4 different pry tools in place. Here you can get away with using needle nose pliers if they spread out far enough to where you can grab these and then squeeze them in and then pull up. You might be even able to pull up on one side, squeeze the tabs on one side, pull those up, and squeeze the tabs on this side and pull those up. But when I was trying that, these kept snapping back and I had to basically pull these in and slide it back up again and then come back over here and start working with the pry tool on this side and then try to pull this up, only to have that snap back down again. So yeah, so you need 4 hands basically to do that. So that's the complication with that. And you'll also have to loosen this one at the same time. These tabs are easier to get to on this. So there's one there and there's one back here on this side. So you can see like that's this one that's here. So these tabs are a little easier to get to on this tan fuse block, but you can basically just grab those with your hand and pull them up and loosen this tan fuse block. Also, these need to come out together, and the reason for that is there's this little thing which I've only removed because I've swapped the fuse box. I've moved this tan fuse block from being on this side to this side, and the wires for this actually go they're held in by this this removable snap thing. So the wires are held in, had to unsnap that, move it over to this side, and then I could snap it back in now and just move the wires into place. So I'm not finished messing with this yet. That's why it's all not snapped back down into place, which is why I'm making this video, because I'm taking advantage of this being out. Once you have this pulled up to the point where I have it now, then what you would need to do is start cutting this this tape that's taped around the bottom, where the wires that hold that fat bundle of wires that goes into the bottom here, you need to cut where the tape is holding it. So you have to cut that and you have to remove that. So don't cut your wires. You're not gonna have a fun day if you cut the wires too, but you will have to cut where everything is taped onto the bottom of this. So once that tape is cut and all that's removed, I think I had to cut a little bit of, I vaguely remember having to cut a little bit of the tape around the harness itself. I don't remember, but just know that you have to do a little bit of cutting on the electrical tape that's on the bottom of this, and just tape that back when you're done, when you put it all together. And then I found that I actually had to pry apart the front. So I had to basically separate these a little more, and you can't pull up too much. You have to rely on trying to move this whole black plastic box piece down while you're prying, instead of trying to pull up on this, because that was my mistake. Is I kept trying to pull up on this, and I kept thinking like it's stuck on something, it's not moving. Well, the thing that it's stuck on is just the length of wires that are coming out of the bottom of the fuse block assembly. You actually have to push the plastic down while you're holding these in place, so that you can get the black plastic clear of this. But then once you have everything exposed, you can work on getting the new pins into your fuse block assembly. So right now I might have to stop the video to pull this out, because it's at that spot where it's a little difficult to work with, especially with one hand. All right, and that's that. And then there's the two fuse blocks together side by side, and they're like mirror opposites of each other. So they're basically the same. And the lids are mostly the same. So if you are going to swap this to your car, the fuse box differences will be talked about later in this video. They're almost all the same, with the exception of this tan fuse block. So maybe you do want to swap this over, because look at this. You can cut the tabs off and you can stick it back way away from your big turbo downpipe, wastegate, and all the heat that's associated with those things. So your turbocharged IS300 fuse box will be safe. So getting the pins out of the fuse block, or getting the pins out of another fuse block that are like these pins and putting them in. So first of all, one of these pins that I'm using is, I'm fairly positive it's from my the extra fuse box that I had for a 95 Celica. As one of the previous cars that I worked on, I built a 3S GTE and put it into a convertible Celica 95. I had an extra fuse box for that because I did the same thing to that I'm doing to this, and I'm tapping into the factory fuse box. So the pins are kind of similar between that, and you should be able to get similar pins from probably GS300, because it's got to have a similar fuse box, and then other Lexuses that are from similar years. So what open fuse spots can you use here? And on mine, you can see that I've got a few fuses missing. They're supposed to be, so these two are supposed to be filled. I'll put those fuses back. This one is an open position. This one is an open position. This one was an open position on mine. There just wasn't a fuse there, and there wasn't a blade in the bottom. And this is now what I'm using for my IS300, the engine management, the ignition coils, fuel injectors, everything, all that stuff is coming off its own separate fuse box that I've installed. But the main power for that fuse box is here, and that's that little 40 amp relay. So that's everything. This is an open fuse spot, I want to say. And there's one more. Where is that open fuse spot? It's about, I think, back, yeah, down here. This is this nearest one to the starter relay, and that's what I see from that. So that's that one there. So that's open. So I have a spare fuse in there right now, but yeah. But those are the open fuse spots that you can use. Some of them have a blade on one side, and some of them they're missing blades from both sides. Like this one, it has a fuse on one side, but there was nothing on the other side. It was blank. So I took a blade from the fuse box assembly from like that 95 Celica, the extra fuse box that I had, and I pulled the blade out and I stuck that in here. And also I pulled the little wires, like, so this open fuse spot that's underneath these 3 fuses, I pulled this out of also the 95 Celica fuse box, and it snaps into this side. So it's the same situation. There's a fuse blade on this side, but there's not one on this side. All of these fuse locations are always 12 volts positive, so they're always on regardless of whether the key's on or off. The fuses that are on the left side, they are behind the alternator fuse, so if the alternator fuse pops, then you lose all of those fuses. The right side cartridge fuses, they don't. They always have 12 volts positive. So getting these types of pins out of the fuse box, I'm gonna have some pictures popping up, but basically what you need to do is, where's my needle nose? So this needs to be pried up initially, because right now I've got this raised up, and you just basically stick a little pry tool under the edge of it. Like right now, that's snapped down all the way. I just pressed it back down. So if I want to pop it up, I'm just prying up on little spots just to lift it up just enough to where I can grab it with my needle nose, because you're going to raise this up and then it's going to stop. I think it's kind of stopped like right there. So you raise it up far enough to where it stops. And then I've got my trusty needle nose here. So I'll grab this with the needle nose. Hopefully it works, because, yeah. So that's out. This takes a little more force to get it out, but I've got that out. And now that you have this out, there's a little tab on the inside, and I'll have a picture popping up because I took a picture of it. That's kind of down there. So once you have that white lockout that I just pulled out with my needle nose, once you have that out, you can just barely see the black tab, and you'll stick a little pry tool in and then move that plastic tab over so that you can pull this pin out. And once that plastic tab's moved over, this just slides right out of the bottom easily. So it's an easy way to get these pins out of other fuse boxes. And like I said, this one came from 95 Celica, but if you can get one from another, like a Lexus or something that's around the same year as this, and also the flat blade style that goes onto here, it's got a wire attached to it and it's got a little hole in it. So when you slide it up, it locks into place. Just make sure your fuse is rated properly for whatever it is you have installed. This fuse spot is open also, but it doesn't have either one of the blades in it. So what I would have to do is, if I wanted to use that, is just run power from something else, split power off of something else, just to put power into that one blade, which means I would be running a power wire from the battery or from somewhere else just to put power into the fuse box. I didn't really think that was necessary, especially since I have my own separate fuse box, but that is an option. If you do have your battery still here, you can run that in. You can run a wire into the fuse box up through the bottom where the factory harness comes in through, snap the pin into place, and then connect the other pin that goes into this side and then run it out. So IS300 and Alteza fuse box differences, specifically IS300 fuse box differences, because this fuse box is IS300, this one is IS300 US. Let's set that there even though it might fall. So this is the IS200 fuse box top, and then IS300 fuse box top. So I'm going to set this one aside because the tabs and everything are the same, just how the blocks mount in is different. So this one, actually I'm going to need the lid though. So when you compare the lids, the inside lids of both of these fuse boxes, I'm not going to line them up side by side and walk through everything that's like, this is the same, this is the same. But what I am going to do is I'm going to walk through and say what's different. So what's different on these, talking about the black fuse block first, so that's going to be on the right side of this one and on the left side of this one. This is the USDM, and this is the European domestic market one. Don't know if the Japanese ones are different, but this is the European one. I'm guessing, since this has Japanese writing, that this is the same fuse box lid that's on the Japanese version of the car, as well as the European version. But this is a European version, just in case it's different. So you notice they have condenser fan number 2, condenser fan number 1, where We just have condenser fan 30 amp. So they've made that difference on between the two, and this open fuse spot is the one that I'm using on mine, where on here, condenser fan number 2, that's the fuse spot that I'm using on this one. So it's gonna be a little confusing. I'm gonna have to cover that up and then say that it's engine management, EMS or something, but somehow put something over this that's permanent, that sticks to that. So that's one difference. This is still blank, like on the other one. So these are all the same. All these fuses are the same going down this side of the black fuse block. So all these are the same. The only difference I think I saw was the, not the horn, something was it, radio number 1 turn, the hazards. So the hazards on this one are 10 amp and they're 15 amp on the USDM. So that's one difference. And then horn is the same, so all the ETCS. So all the other ones are the same. When you come over here to, so ABS, these are all the same. We have the daytime running light number 2, daytime running light number 1, and they don't have that on theirs. They just have the headlamp leveling on theirs. So like, we don't have the headlamp leveler on ours, at least I don't have it on mine, but headlamp level. And this is daytime running lights number 1 and number 2. So they're not, it's not open, it's not usable, but everything else, main, headlamp, starter, those are all the same. So the black fuse block, hardly any differences. Everything is basically the same. You're just missing the condenser fan number 2, and you have a different fuse size here for your turn and your hazards, where this is 10 amp on the European cars. On the US, it's 15 amp. So not much difference there. When you come over to the yellow fuse block, however, it's a mirror opposite. So this relay is here, this relay is here. So those are swapped. And this is moved over to this side, but this fuse is the same. So what those are, does not that it matters that much, but the headlamp upper, headlamp left upper and right upper, or high LP, I don't know, whatever that stands for. High LP, L upper, high LP, right upper. I guess that's headlamp. So, so those two, so they're mirror opposite. And if you look here on this one, so the high, or the HLPR upper, it's still in the middle on this one, so that's fine. But this side has flipped over to where it's here. So they just made that a mirror opposite for some reason. The EFI and the horn are switched, where you have like EFI and EFI on the left here and horn on the right here. On the US one, you have horn on the left and EFI on the right. So they're just flipped mirror opposite. ABS motor and ABS solenoid, they're all like, they're all the same. So there's no differences there. So that's that. If you want to put in an IS300 fuse box, just in case you're wondering, you can't take the right-hand drive fuse box and then mount it over there to the strut tower without drilling your own mounts. So I looked into that because I thought about like, well, what if I just put the fuse box there just so that I could store tools inside of it or something? And no, you can't do that. So there's nowhere to mount it. There's no holes that are put into the strut tower to mount it to, so you can't even do that. The reason I am doing it, I have to cut these tabs off of the side, and whenever I do that, I'm actually gonna have to fuse some plastic. I've gotten pretty good at fusing plastic to plastic, but what I'm gonna have to do is when I cut these tabs off, make new tabs. There's a couple of 10mm spots I can tap into. So there's one kind of on this side of the ABS pump, and there's one on the bottom here, of like closer to the bottom of the ABS pump. So I can use both of those. And there's also this tab that's here. And I want to say, going off of memory from when the battery used to be mounted right here, I think there's another 10 that's down there, and that might be the one that I'm using for my little makeshift mount that's not working well. But my little makeshift mount for my ABS motor, ABS pump. So that's gonna be something that I'll be attempting in the future. I don't know if I'm gonna make a video on it until after it's done, and I'll just talk about what I did, but I'm definitely not gonna make a how-to because I have to figure out the how-to. But it's gonna be tucked away in the corner here with the tabs cut off. versus, where's the other one? Versus trying to tuck this one away in the corner, and you have this weird shaped section that comes out here that kind of makes it where it doesn't really sit flush. Honestly, it doesn't make too much of a difference. But I will hopefully have that IS300 version of the fuse box mounted and in place. And who knows, maybe I'll just revert back to using this one and just keep that one for something else. But anyway, that's how you open a fuse box. Thanks a lot for following through in the video while I was stumbling through making it. If you like this video, please feel free to give it a thumbs up, comment, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And as always, God bless you guys.